first thing we're gonna do is prime our face. So the one I chose was the e.l.f. Mineral Face Primer. You can use whichever one you have. This one is a silicone base primer and it is clear. So I'm gonna just apply that on my nose, all over my face, preferably in the T-zone area because that's where I tend to break down any foundation throughout the day because I am a normal to oily skin type. Our next step is going to conceal any hyperpigmentation, any of that redness that you have in your face. If you don't, then that's great, but I do. And you can see I have some redness here, a lot on my nose, around my nose, a little bit on my chin, sides of my face, and right here in between my eyebrows. So we want to conceal that before we put our foundation on. So you can go ahead and grab any cream concealer. The one I'm using is the Sonia Kashuk Hidden Agenda. And the reason why we use a cream concealer at this point, you're not really going to want to put something that's thick over a foundation. You want to use it under your foundation. So right here you'll notice I do have a darker peachy type of color. That's what we're going to use for any of the under eye bags, the dark circles, any blueness. The green in this palette is going to correct any of that redness. So first I'm going to actually cover any of that blueness, any of that darkness you can see right here under my under eyes. So I'm just going to grab some of that peach tone color and I'm going to put that right in the middle, in the inner corner of my under eye. And I'm gonna get a brush and blend that out. You can use your finger. I'm just gonna use, I have a Tarte brush here, and I just like to blend that out. You don't want this to be a very thick coverage because it will look really cakey and accentuate any fine lines under your eye. So as you can see, I'm looking a little less blue and a little less dark right here. We are going to do another step later to lighten that up even more. But now I want to focus on the redness on my skin. So I'm just going to get that green color and I'm not putting a thin layer on. I'm just kind of plopping it on my face and then I'm going to blend out with a brush. I'm just using a Real Techniques. This is the setting brush, but I really like it to blend this thicker concealer. And you can already see the difference it's making. I'm less red in those areas. I mean, it's not perfect, but it is counteracting some of that red. And this way, if you do these steps before you put your foundation on, you're not going to need as much foundation. You should never really be using foundation to cover up any problem areas. Foundation is really just evening out the skin tone, whereas these concealers can correct or cover any blemishes. I would say we're pretty well blended here, and it doesn't leave any green, coloring on your face, so you don't have to worry about that. But as you can see, my redness is still a little visible right here, but it's not too bad. I've covered up most of it. Now grab your foundation. I'm actually going to use my True Match foundations. I'm using two because I have light ivory W2 and I have natural buff N3, and one's too dark and one's too light, but when I use them in combination it is my perfect shade. To apply your foundation you can use several different types of brushes. There's this one here that's more of a flat pointed type of foundation brush. You have a buffing brush that I really like, and the Beauty Blender. So I'm actually going to use a combination. I'm going to apply a very thin layer with my Real Techniques. This is the 101 foundation brush, and I like using this because you can just get a very thin layer, and then I use my Beauty Blender to kind of bump the rest of it in my skin. Always make sure you go down your neck as well. One thing I do really like about this brush is you would think that it would leave some streaks behind, but it actually really blends out your foundation really, really well. You can then go ahead with your beauty blender and you can just bump a little bit more foundation into areas that just need a little bit more coverage. Don't try to cover any redness or any blemishes at this point. We will use a concealer to do that because you don't want your foundation looking cakey. So I think I'm really satisfied with the amount of coverage I got really with that first layer. Okay, so now that we've completed the real base part of this, you can go in with a liquid foundation, and I'm using the Maybelline Fit Me. This is in the color Fair. It is a lot lighter than my natural skin color, but I like to do a little bit on the under eyes and any other redness that I feel like it didn't get completely covered, and it brightens at the same time. So you can use your regular skin tone color liquid concealer, or if at this point you feel like your foundation looks perfect and you don't need to add an extra step with concealer, don't. The less you put on the face, the better it's going to look. But for me, I do want to get a little of this darkness gone. So I'm just doing that right in that area, and then right here I have a little bit of redness. And I like to go down the nose because that highlights a little bit as well, on the Cupid's bow, and I like to do on the chin so everything looks very uniformed and even. Now you can go in with a brush or any other type of tool, but I'll just use the beauty blender. Okay, now I've blended all that out, and I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but I can see a significant difference just by doing that. It just covered up any extra darkness that I had there. I will still see those lines. Those are just my eyes. That's what I have, these little bags here, like I'm packing a luggage for the weekend. But it did help with the between the eyebrows, any redness I had right here, and just kind of evened everything out. So I'm happy with how this looks right now. So we have a very good base. We've covered everything. Any blemishes has been covered. If you did have a blemish, I know we didn't go through this step, but if you did have a blemish, just get a small type of brush. Like I have a little dot here. It's like an old blemish. I'm not quite sure. But, you know, you would get a little dot. You would get a little bit of a concealer, and you would just dab on right in that area, but you don't want to cake it on. You want to put a very small amount, because if you add too much on your blemish, it's going to just stand out even more. And always make sure you're matching your skin tone. Don't use a lighter color, that will stand out. Don't use a darker color because that will make it stand out even more. So now we can go in with powder. If you have dry skin, skip this step. You don't need the powder. It will just cling to those dry patches. But if you do have a normal to oily acneic type of skin, go ahead and do a powder, because that will help with setting everything. That will hold it in place as you're producing oil throughout the day. For me, like I said, I have a normal to oily skin type, so I produce my oil just in my T-zone. So I focus a lot of my powder just in that area. So what I'm going to use is the BareMinerals. This is the Touch Up Veil in Translucent. So this isn't going to add any additional color, which is something I like and prefer. And I'm going to use just a Morphe. This is just a pointed, this is the M438. It's just a pointed brush that I really like, a tapered brush. So I'm going to go ahead and get some of that product, tap off any excess, And I'm going to apply this under my eyes. I don't want any of that creasing to happen with the concealer we use, and this just sets everything. I'm going right here inside of my nose because I do get that oiliness right there, and then on my nose. And then right here too, between my eyebrows. I just kind of drag over my eyebrows too to make sure everything looks blended. I'm not as oily in the winter time because of the colder weather, but I still need to do this step because I will get shiny. So you can go ahead and finish up the rest of your face, put your blush on, your lipstick, any other steps that you need to take to complete your look. And I'm gonna do the same, and we'll be back to talk about the last steps in finishing our foundation. Welcome back. We have gone ahead and finished up our makeup routine. I went ahead and used a highlighter, a bronzer all over the face. I put on a lip gloss, and I'm ready to do the final step in my foundation and overall makeup look. Whether or not you're trying to go for a very perfected foundation or base, you could still do this step. And the step that I'm referring to is setting. So I use my Urban Decay All Nighter setting spray. And for me, this just locks everything into place. My blush, my foundation, the powder, everything that I'm wearing on my face, it locks it in and adds longevity to the look. It will prevent it from breaking down over the day. It really does extend your makeup look. And for me, I tend to break it down around my nose area because that is where I'm most oily, and this helps a lot. So you can go ahead, and if you're using this one in particular, and I feel like most setting sprays, you want to shake them up, and then you can go ahead and spray this on your face. Now, Urban Decay recommends a cross and then an X, but I just spray it all over and make sure I'm getting an even mist. And that's it. It just feels so cool on the skin. It feels like I'm adding moisture, so even though I've put on all these products on my skin, I have this cool mist that kind of settles in and eliminates any extra powderiness, anything that looks like you're wearing makeup. And certainly I am wearing a lot of makeup, so we weren't trying to go for a no makeup look. This was just about perfecting your base, and when you do that, you are just making the rest of your look, your eyes, your blush, your contour, whatever it is you're putting on your face, just stand out so much more. I hope that you found this video helpful. These types of tips really help me when I'm watching other videos or when I'm in school and I'm learning different things. But for me, this is my go-to process. This is what works for me. It may not work for you, but I hope you can take some of it and use it in your routine, if not all of it. And if you have any questions, comment below. If you have any extra tips yourself and things that you found that worked, I would love to hear from them. If you like the video, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, you know where that button lives. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!